friends. Welcome to day number 5 of our Advent devotionals. We're so glad that you're here. This is something we've been doing every day in the month of December, something we will do every day during the month of December, right here on Facebook and YouTube and via our call-in number, 345-889. For those of you who might not have great internet at home, we are just so glad that you're joining us, however you're joining us. It's just an honor to come into your homes or your workplaces or wherever you are. Really, thank you so much for joining us in this time. We hope that you are being blessed through these devotionals. And if it's your first time here, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. If you're in the Tri-Cities area and you don't have a church home, we want you to know you do at KCC. So today, as we get into our devotional reading, we're going to talk about the bad news of Christmas. Ooh. You think, what is that? What do you mean, the bad news? Christmas is good. Like Christmas is this bright, cheery time of year. Well, let's talk about what we mean when we talk about the bad news of Christmas. The reading today from Come Let Us Adore Him says this. One of the primary purposes of the incarnation of Jesus is to humble each and every one of us. Let me say it this way. Only when you accept the very, very bad news of Jesus' birth will you then begin to be excited about its very, very good news. Good news is only ever good news to people who know that they need good news. $10 is extremely good news to a poor person, but would not even get noticed by a rich person. The promise of healing is wonderfully good news to a very sick woman, but would not even get the attention of a woman who is in good health. Jesus' birth is both the worst and the best news ever, and understanding will change your life forever. Understanding both will change your life forever. It is humbling to accept that God came in the person of Jesus to live the way we were created to live but never could, to die the death that each of us deserves, and to rise out of the tomb defeating sin and death because there was simply no other way. God knew that our condition was so desperately grave that He was willing to go to this extent to reach and rescue us. Ponder the fact that God was willing to control the events of world history to bring this world to the place where conditions were right for Jesus to come, simply because we had no power whatsoever to help ourselves or get ourselves out of our desperate state. Humanity was so incredibly messed up that there was only one solution for us: God Himself. God knew that something lurks inside all of us and twists every thought, that diverts every desire, that shapes the direction of every choice, and that controls every word and action. And He knew that because this thing was inside of us and not outside of us, that we would never be able to conquer it on our own. For all the beauty of His law, He knew the law could expose us, it could guide us, it could indict us, but it could never rescue us. So the only hope for messed up and desperate people like us was the sending of the ultimate rescuer, Jesus, the Son of God. The reason the birth of Jesus is such gloriously wonderful news is that in His birth, God offers you and me the only solution to the fundamental brokenness of sin that is the core tragedy of every one of our lives. So confessing our brokenness is the only way we will ever fully understand and celebrate the good news of the birth of the Messiah, Jesus our Lord. Let me define the brokenness of sin which every human being shares with 5 words: separation, inability, delusion, judgment, hopelessness. First, because of sin, we exist in a from-birth state of separation from God, for whose glory we were created and in whose fellowship we were meant to live. Separation from God robs us of the core reason for our existence. Sin also renders us unable. It makes it impossible for us to think as we were made to think, to desire what we were created to desire, to speak as we were designed to speak, and to behave as God intended us to behave. How sad it is to be a human being, but not be able to live as you were created to live. Because sin blinds, it also leaves us in a constant state of delusion. We think we know ourselves so well, but we don't. We assess that we are more righteous than we actually are, and because we do that, we don't seek the help we so desperately need. But on top of those disasters is something even more terrible. Sin doesn't just leave us separate from God, it places us under His judgment. Because we have rebelled against Him and demanded our own way, we have again and again broken His law. How tragic it is to be under the judgment of the one for whom you were created. Yet there is one more thing to be said about the effect of sin. Sin leaves us hopeless. Since sin is a matter of the heart, a condition of our own nature, it is impossible for us to escape it on our own. We are under its destructive power, yet we can do nothing to help ourselves. The Apostle Paul describes our lives apart from the amazing grace of the birth of Jesus as having no hope without God in the world. The beautiful news, though, of the Christmas season is that God wasn't willing to leave us in this tragic and desperate state. He had every right to make His final response to us as one of judgment, but He wasn't willing to do that. He chose to respond another way, not because of what He saw in us, but because in Him. At Christmas, we celebrate a God who is glorious in His abundant love and patient mercy. He chose to give grace to those who could never deserve His favor. He chose to rescue those who could not help themselves. He chose to forgive those who had rebelled again and again. He chose to not leave us in our blindness, but to open our eyes. He chose to empower the unable. And because He chose all of these things, He chose to send His Son. The glory of the birth of Jesus becomes even more glorious when it is seen through the humbling lens of the desperate condition that was the reason for His coming. So accept the very bad news of Christmas this year. Accept the very bad news so that you can celebrate even more joyfully its wonderfully good news. Wow, isn't that a sobering and celebrating reading today? You know, I heard another pastor say one time that the gospel is bad news before it's good news. And what a humbling reality it is to remember that Jesus came because I couldn't help myself, because we couldn't fix our broken condition. He came and He suffered and He died and He rose again. And that's what we celebrate at Christmas. So today, I hope that this reading will remind you of the bad news of the good news, and that in that you will be moved to worship and respond today to the glorious grace of Jesus Christ. Thanks so much for joining us. If this video has been an encouragement to you, we'd love it if you'd share it with your friends on your social media channels, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m. for our next Advent devotional right here at KCC Online.